the show. Now, it is an election year in the US of A, and things are not looking good for Joe Biden. Not only is he floundering in the polls, he looks increasingly like he's one 25th Amendment away from a nursing home. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, it's very hard for him to take advantage of this leverage, as he is stuck in court thanks to the nefarious acts of lawfare undertaken against him by the Democrats. And joining me to give us all the latest election news is international YouTube star, the effervescent Chris Kohls, aka Mr Reagan. Chris, great to have you here. How are you?
Fantastic, and I am effervescent. If you listen carefully, I sound like a Sprite or a Coca-Cola.
Yes, beautiful, lovely, vibrant audio quality. That's what we love. Now, look, Chris, let's start with poor old Joe Biden, who is the least popular president in 70 years, can you believe it, with a dismal 38.7% approval rating. The Gallup poll also put him as standing in a weaker position than any prior incumbent. Now, do you think there is any chance of redemption, or do you think we can call the race right here?
You know, that's actually a fascinating question. I do think that there is, it's possible he can be redeemed by what we like to call in America election rigging. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's a beautiful new technique that they use in order to raise your profile in the polls and all kinds of different things. Yeah, it's really weird, actually, right? It's really weird that a lot of people think polls are rigged in America. I tried to do a video on this a while back, maybe like during the last election, maybe. And I found that the polls were actually not too bad. The problem is that sometimes the pollsters are confused by something, or they're reading something that's not there or something. And so sometimes they get it way off. But they do seem to be giving it their best shot. You would imagine if elections are rigged, it would be smart to rig the polls as well. And I'm sure some are. And certainly the media is always trying to spin it one way or another. But in this election, what I love to hear is that MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, they're all pretty down on Biden. And so this indicates to me that it's probably true that Biden actually is doing really poorly, because I think they're at a point now where they're like, even if they rig it, I don't think he's going to win. And I do think that there is a kind of imbalance in the deep state, or a conflict. And when I say deep state, I just mean people with undue influence on the federal government. I don't necessarily mean some like cabal of mysterious people. These are just people who, have money or work on Wall Street or military industrial complex or something where they have undue influence on the federal government. I do think that they have a lot of this influence, and they do want to try to control who becomes president. And I do think a lot of them say, look, Joe Biden is the best puppet we've ever had. He is so easy. We just throw something in front of him and he signs it, or he makes a mark that looks like some kind of a signature. And that's what we need. That's what we want. Let's keep him in as long as possible. And you get this other side of the deep state that goes, well, but he's not going to win, guys. Like, we got to get somebody in who can win. This guy's so old. How are we going to do it? So I think there's a conflict there. And I think the media isn't necessarily beholden to one side or another. And so some of the media will say, Joe Biden's the best thing in the world. Like Mark Hamill literally just tweeted, he goes, I hope Joe Biden's second term is as productive and as amazing as his first term.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just reading this going like, what are you? Yeah, Mark Hamill's like a little crazy. He's gone crazy.
That, or someone's paying
so
him.
There are people that, yeah, for real. I mean, there are people that support Joe Biden still in the media. That's just like, he's the best thing ever. But there are a lot of people that are just like, you know what? We do need somebody else. Let's tell the truth about the election right now.
Yeah, I mean, it is extraordinary what is going on. I mean, it's confusing as to why they've kept Biden in there, because he is such a terrible candidate. And meanwhile, as I said, poor old Trump is tied up in court, but he has been soaring just compared to Joe Biden in the polls. He's ahead in the swing states. And there's this rumor going around, there's been so much speculation about who he's going to pick as his VP running mate, that it might in fact be J.D. Vance. Now, what's your opinion on this, Chris? Could this be a good pick?
You know, there was a time many years ago, I don't remember exactly when it was, early, I think, in Biden's presidency, he was in Italy, I think, visiting the Pope. And there was a rumor that he pooed himself. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I think maybe if Donald Trump does choose J.D. Vance, we may have a similar episode going on because that would be a terrifying ticket. J.D. Vance is fantastic. Because the thing about J.D. Vance is he speaks well and he's disarming. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people in politics, they seem very phony. Like me, right? They got this beautiful smile. They speak so well. Like, nice rhetoric, dude. F off, you're a phony. J.D. Vance doesn't come across as a phony. He seems like a legit guy. You know, I mean, you and me, Daisy, we know, come on, like, we come across as totally fake.
Oh, God,
But
yeah.
J.D. Vance does not. He comes across great. I have actually I've heard a whisper from somebody very close to the Trump campaign. This was a while ago, so this was maybe a month or two ago. It was a while ago.
Okay.
And they said that Trump had actually picked his VP like already. He's already picked him or her.
Wow. Or her.
Him or her. And that and the name that I got was a name that we have not heard. Like, no, I've never heard anybody propose this name. But it made sense to me a little bit because Trump really is the star, right? So if you're going to propose somebody for Trump to be aligned with as his VP, he may not want somebody stealing the limelight. He may want somebody who's just a dutiful VP that just kind of like is a bit quiet, not that charming, stays in, so that may be what's going on. It may not be a big name like we're all thinking. It may be somebody that maybe you've never heard of before.
Well, that's an excellent point. I mean, that was Hillary Clinton's strategy back in 2016. She had, I don't even remember his name, the guy that she had as her VP pick. He just kind of stood there quietly because she was, unfortunately for the Democrats, the star of the campaign. So that would be an interesting technique for Trump. But, poor old Trump, this court cases he's dealing with. I mean, there's another headline screaming possible jail time for Trump, this time for breaching a gag order. Chris, look, how likely is this one? We've seen a lot of this, but, touch wood, not a lot has come of it yet.
Yeah, it actually is a much better strategy than I thought it was going to be. Like, I'll hear people talk about Trump's indictments, and granted, most people are just brainless automatons, right? Like, I was watching last year's season of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Australia.
Of course.
As you do, because why not? And they had announced on the show to the contestants that Trump was going to be indicted for, criminal charges, relating to the insurrection, so-called. And people were like cheering on the show, like the so-called celebrities on the show were cheering. And I just thought to myself, like, these seem like nice people, actually. And it's really sick that they have actually been convinced that Donald Trump is guilty of these crimes. Like, it should be very obvious to me that this is the kind of crap that they do in third world countries to try to stop a challenger from coming in and taking over their dictatorship. But some people just buy it. And this is what I tell people. In case you get into an argument about Trump's indictments with leftists, this is what I always say. I always say, look, you have to acknowledge that there are probably quite a lot of people who are corrupt in Washington, D.C., right?
Yes.
And all the people in Washington, D.C. that are in the establishment, that have been there for 1,000 years, they're all saying the same thing. Trump's a criminal. He's a bad guy. You shouldn't like him. Well, if all the corrupt people in D.C. are telling you this is the bad guy over here, maybe that's not the bad guy. Maybe that's the good guy.
I think you are exactly right. And everyone take note of that. That is an extremely good argument to put to whatever left to start screaming, Trump is a racist, Trump is a bad guy. It's like, well, look who's supporting him and who's not. That's a good indicator. Chris Kohls, you are, as ever, a beacon of common sense and fun and great intellect. It is fantastic to have you on the show again, and I do hope we can have you on again soon.
Well, I certainly hope that I get you on our live stream so that you can maybe add something, physically attractive, melodic, and charming to our show, because right now it's really suffering.
I would love to come on your live stream, Chris, and I cannot wait to organize that. I will see you there.
All right, chat soon.